Shaquille O'Neal sat quietly in the corner booth of a small McDonald's on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Despite his fame, he liked to keep a low profile whenever he could. A pair of dark sunglasses shielded his eyes, and the oversized gray hoodie draped over his frame helped obscure his unmistakable presence. It was one of those rare days when he had time to himself. The world outside was bustling, but here, in this little fast food joint, he found a sense of calm. A tray with a Big Mac, fries, and a large soda sat in front of him. Shaq wasn't here for the diet, he was here for the nostalgia. As he picked up a fry, dipping it lazily into ketchup, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. A small boy, no older than 10, had approached his table, his face flushed with excitement. His hair was tousled, and he clutched a worn basketball under one arm. "Excuse me," the boy said, his voice trembling slightly. "You're Shaq, right?" Shaq looked around the restaurant. A few heads had turned, but most people were either too polite or too unsure to approach him. He took off his sunglasses and smiled warmly. "Yeah, that's me," he said in his deep, reassuring voice. "What's up, little man?" The boy hesitated, glancing back at the counter where a frazzled woman, likely his mother, was fumbling with her wallet. Then, as if gathering all his courage, he blurted out, "I need your help." Shaq raised an eyebrow. "What kind of help are we talking about?" The boy shifted nervously, his hands tightening on the basketball. "My mom. She's really stressed. Our car broke down, and we don't have enough money to fix it. She says we might have to take the bus everywhere now, and it's really hard 'cause my little sister is sick. I thought maybe you could. I don't know. Help us." The restaurant grew quieter, as if the weight of the boy's words had drawn everyone's attention. Shaq leaned back in his seat, his expression softening. He'd heard plenty of stories over the years, but this one hit differently. Maybe it was the boy's genuine tone or the way he stood there, vulnerable but brave. "What's your name?" Shaq asked, his voice kind. "Ethan," the boy replied. "All right, Ethan. Let's see what we can do." Shaq stood up, towering over everyone in the restaurant. He motioned for Ethan's mother to come over, and she hesitated before approaching, her face a mix of worry and embarrassment. Shaq began, his voice calm and steady, "I heard about your situation. Let me help you out." Before she could protest, he pulled out his wallet and handed her a few crisp bills. "This should cover the car repairs. And if you need anything else, let me know." Tears welled up in the woman's eyes. I don't know what to say. "Thank you." Ethan beamed, clutching his basketball tighter. "Thank you, Shaq." Shaq patted the boy's shoulder. "No problem, buddy. Just promise me one thing, work hard in school, okay? And keep practicing with that ball." Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "I will. I'll be just like you someday." Shaq chuckled. "You'll be better." As the boy and his mother left the restaurant, the other patrons broke into quiet applause. Shaq waved it off, sitting back down to finish his meal. For him, it wasn't about the attention, it was about doing the right thing. And as he took another bite of his Big Mac, he couldn't help but smile. Sometimes, even in the simplest places, life had a way of reminding you what truly mattered. As Shaq sat back down, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. It was no longer just a fast food joint, it felt like a small community had witnessed something special. A few people came up to thank him quietly, while others offered polite nods of respect. Shaq didn't mind the attention, but he was used to it. He finished his fries and was about to take a sip of his soda when his phone buzzed. It was a text from his manager. "Charity event tomorrow at noon. Don't forget." Shaq chuckled to himself. It felt like his whole life revolved around helping others, and he wouldn't have it any other way. But something about Ethan and his mum stayed with him. It wasn't just about fixing a car. It was the way Ethan had stepped up, brave enough to ask for help in a world where many adults wouldn't. As he left the McDonald's, Shaq paused at the door. He could see Ethan and his mom across the parking lot, standing by an old, battered sedan with the hood propped open. A mechanic had already arrived, tools in hand, and Ethan was eagerly explaining something to him. Shaq walked over. "Everything all right here?" The mechanic looked up, startled, and immediately recognized him. "Shaq?" "Yeah, I think I can get this fixed in no time." Ethan's mom looked at Shaq, her gratitude evident. "You didn't have to come out here. I just wanted to make sure you're good," Shaq said, glancing at Ethan, who was now dribbling his basketball on the cracked pavement. "And to give you my card." He handed her a sleek black card with his name and a number printed on it. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call. And when you get that car running, take the kids somewhere fun." "My treat." The woman's eyes widened. "Shaq, I can't. This is too much." He shook his head. "It's not too much if it makes things a little easier for you. Trust me." Before she could respond, Ethan bounced the basketball over to Shaq. "Wanna play one-on-one?" he asked, grinning. Shaq laughed, his deep voice echoing across the lot. "You sure you're ready for this?" The next few minutes turned into an impromptu game. Shaq let Ethan score a few points, but he couldn't resist showing off a signature move or two, leaving the boy laughing so hard he almost fell over. Even the mechanic paused his work to watch, shaking his head in disbelief at the surreal scene. When the car was finally fixed, Ethan's mom insisted on taking a photo. Shaq obliged, crouching down to Ethan's level and holding the basketball with him. "Remember," he said, "dream big, work hard, and take care of your family." As they drove off, Ethan waved frantically out the window, shouting, "Thanks, Shaq." Shaq stood in the lot for a moment, watching them disappear down the road. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction, but also curiosity. What would become of Ethan? Would he grow up to be a basketball player? A mechanic? A doctor? Whatever the case, Shaq knew the boy had the heart to make it happen. Smiling, he got into his own car and drove off, his mind already spinning with ideas. Maybe he'd start a new program to help families in tough situations, or a scholarship fund for kids like Ethan. One small moment in a McDonald's had reminded him of the impact he could make, and he wasn't about to stop now. Sometimes, life didn't need a grand stage to show its best plays, it just needed a little kindness, a basketball, and a heart big enough to listen. As Shaq drove through the city streets, the image of Ethan and his mom lingered in his mind. The encounter had sparked something, a memory of his own childhood, when his family had struggled to make ends meet. His stepfather, a disciplined military man, had taught him the value of hard work and kindness. Now, it was his turn to pass that lesson on. The next morning, Shaq was up early, sipping coffee as the sunrise painted the sky. His manager called, reminding him of the charity event scheduled for noon. "Hey, I need you to pull some strings," Shaq said, interrupting his manager. "Strings? For what?" "I want to track down that boy and his mom." "Ethan and—" Shaq paused, trying to recall her name. "Well, you'll figure it out. I have an idea." His manager sighed but didn't argue. "All right, I'll see what I can do." By the time Shaq arrived at the event, a community basketball clinic for underprivileged kids, he already had a plan. The event was in full swing, with dozens of kids dribbling, shooting, and laughing. Shaq joined in, towering over everyone as he coached the kids on free throws and defense. He loved these moments, where basketball wasn't just a game but a bridge to something greater. A couple of hours later, his manager approached him, phone in hand. "Got their number," he said. Shaq smiled. "You're the best." He stepped away from the crowd and dialed the number. After a few rings, Ethan's mom answered, her voice cautious but polite. "Hi, it's Shaq," he said, his deep voice unmistakable. There was a brief silence, then a surprised laugh. "Oh, wow. Hi. I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I've got a favor to ask," Shaq said. Can you and Ethan come down to the basketball clinic I'm at? I think he'd have a great time. She hesitated. I don't know. We're not really prepared for anything fancy. It's not fancy, Shaq assured her. Just bring him. Trust me. A couple of hours later, Ethan and his mom arrived at the community center. Ethan's eyes lit up as he saw the rows of kids playing on the courts and the familiar figure of Shaq towering above them all. Ethan. There he is. Shaq called, waving them over. Ethan ran up to him, clutching the same basketball he'd had at McDonald's. What is this place? This, Shaq said, spreading his arms, is a basketball clinic for kids like you. And today, you're my special guest. Ethan's jaw dropped. Really? Really, Shaq said, smiling. But there's more. He led Ethan to a table piled high with brand new basketball gear, shoes, jerseys, and even a personalized ball with Ethan's name on it. The boy's mom looked on, tears welling up in her eyes as Ethan tried on the shoes, his grin stretching ear to ear. Why are you doing this? She asked softly, standing beside Shaq. He shrugged. Because someone once did it for me. And because Ethan's got something special. I can see it. The rest of the day was a whirlwind of laughter and excitement. Ethan played alongside other kids, soaking up every moment. At the end of the clinic, Shaq gathered everyone together for a group photo, with Ethan right by his side. Before they left, Shaq pulled Ethan aside. You've got talent, kid. But more importantly, you've got heart. Never forget that, all right? Ethan nodded, his eyes shining. I won't. Thank you, Shaq. As they drove away, Ethan clutching his new basketball gear, Shaq felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He didn't know where Ethan's journey would lead, but he knew one thing for sure: the boy had a bright future ahead, and Shaq had played a small part in lighting the way. For Shaq, this wasn't the end of a story, it was the beginning of something much bigger. A ripple of kindness that, he hoped, would continue to spread. A few weeks later, Shaq was back on the road, juggling his usual mix of charity events, business meetings, and appearances. Life was busy, as always, but he often found himself wondering about Ethan and his mom. He'd kept tabs on them through his manager, who mentioned that their car had been repaired and life was slowly getting back on track. One afternoon, Shaq received a package at his office. It was small, wrapped in plain brown paper with a handwritten note taped to the top. Curious, he opened it to find Ethan's basketball, the same worn ball the boy had carried that day in McDonald's. Inside the box was a card with a simple message. Dear Shaq. Thank you for everything. I wanted to give you this basketball because it's special to me, just like what you did for us. I'll never forget it. Ethan. Shaq held the ball in his massive hands, staring at it for a long moment. It was scuffed and faded, a sign of countless hours spent playing, dreaming, and believing in something bigger. He smiled, touched by the boy's gesture. That evening, Shaq placed the basketball on a shelf in his home office, next to his trophies and championship rings. It wasn't the shiniest thing in the room, but to him, it was one of the most meaningful. As he sat back, he reflected on the unexpected encounter that had started it all. He knew he couldn't change the whole world, but moments like these reminded him that even small acts of kindness could create ripples that went far beyond what he could see. For Ethan, that day might have been about getting help with a car and playing basketball with his hero. But for Shaq, it was a reminder of why he did what he did, not for the fame or the accolades, but for the chance to make a difference, one life at a time. With a deep breath, Shaq grabbed his phone and texted his manager. Find me the next Ethan, he wrote. Let's keep this going. And with that, Shaq got back to work, knowing that the story wasn't really over. It was just another chapter in a bigger tale, one of giving back, inspiring others, and proving that kindness, no matter how simple, can change lives.